On a quiet Sunday afternoon, a woman opens a drawer in her kitchen looking for scissors and finds 7 things before she finds the one thing she needs. Expired batteries, a charger for a phone she no longer owns, rubber bands turning brittle with age, a key to something forgotten, 2 takeout menus from restaurants that closed months ago, a specialty peeler used once for a recipe she never made again, and beneath all of it, the scissors. The moment lasts maybe 12 seconds. It feels ordinary, but it says something brutal about how a lot of people live. Not in poverty, not in luxury, in accumulation, in homes filled with objects that are not exactly useful, not exactly meaningful, not exactly necessary, but somehow still present, still taking space, still asking to be moved, cleaned, sorted, stored, organized, and mentally accounted for. That is the strange burden of modern ownership. Most people are not drowning in a few catastrophic decisions. They are being slowly buried by thousands of small ones that were never revisited. Which is why one of the fastest ways to understand what is quietly draining your life is not to ask whether you own too much. That question is too vague, too moralized, too easy to dodge. The better question is sharper. If this item disappeared tonight, would I go replace it with my own money? Not eventually, not in theory, not because it was expensive once, not because getting rid of it feels wasteful. Would you actively choose to bring it back into your life at today's price, with today's space, today's habits, and today's priorities? That is the replacement test. And once you walk through your home with that question, a shocking number of possessions reveal themselves for what they really are. Not treasures, not tools, not beloved essentials, just unpaid decisions taking up residence. The replacement test matters because it cuts through almost every excuse people use to protect clutter. People keep things for reasons that sound respectable until examined closely. It was expensive, it might come in handy. Someone gave it to me. I could use it one day. I used to use it a lot, it still works. I do not know where else it would go. I should probably sell it. I might regret it. All of those reasons share one trait. They are backward-looking. They are built on the past. The replacement test forces a present-tense answer. It asks whether this object has enough real value right now or to deserve re-entry if it vanished. That shift changes everything. Because a lot of what fills a home is not active value. It is historical value, hypothetical value, guilty value, inherited value, or identity value. It is a physical record of who you thought you would become, what you once paid for, what you were once interested in, what you once feared running out of, or what you once felt too sentimental to release. That is not the same thing as usefulness, and it is definitely not the same thing as contribution. The replacement test does not ask whether an object is evil. It asks whether the object is still earning its place. That is a much more honest standard. Imagine walking through your home room by room with this in mind. Not with trash bags. Not with a performative minimalist mood. Not trying to prove discipline to anyone, just walking slowly and asking one clean question at a time. If this disappeared tonight, would I spend my own money to replace it? The answers come fast when you are honest. Some things are immediate yes. Your everyday shoes, your laptop, the pan you use constantly, the pillow that actually supports your sleep, the coat that gets you through winter, the charger you reach for every day. These are not the problem. They have visible jobs. They have friction if missing. They create relief, utility, or comfort in a way you would notice quickly. But then you get to the second category. The awkward maybes. The decorative item you stopped seeing months ago. The duplicate kitchen tool that seemed smart at the time. The extra side table carrying nothing but dust and old mail. And the cords in the box labeled important cables. The stack of magazines you are somehow still pretending to read. The formal outfit for events you do not attend. The exercise equipment associated with a version of yourself who appears every January and disappears by February. And this is where the home begins to tell the truth. Because the moment you realize you would not replace something, you are forced to confront a harder fact. If you would not buy it again, why are you still paying to own it now? That payment may not arrive as a bill in the mail, but you are paying in square footage, in visual noise, in cleaning time, in storage furniture, in mental energy, in the small but steady stress of living among things that have not justified themselves in years. That is why the replacement test is more powerful than ordinary decluttering advice. It does not turn the whole process into a debate about whether you have too much. It turns every object into a simple economic and emotional decision. Would I choose this again? That question exposes several kinds of possessions that add almost zero value. The first kind is the duplicate that exists because of poor visibility, poor systems, or casual overbuying. Most homes contain more duplicates than people realize. Extra scissors, extra tape, extra mugs, extra storage containers, extra phone chargers, extra black t-shirts, extra water bottles, extra tools bought because the first one could not be found quickly enough. Duplicates feel harmless because each one looks small. But a house made of harmless extras becomes surprisingly expensive to live inside. The replacement test is merciless here. If the item vanished, would you replace this exact extra one, or would the original be enough? Most duplicates fail immediately. Then there is the aspirational object. This one is more emotionally charged. The juicer for the health phase that never became daily life. The guitar from the month you swore you were about to learn. The luxury notebook bought for the disciplined version of you. The niche cookware associated with meals you imagine yourself preparing far more often than you do. The art supplies from the brief creative surge. The travel gear for a style of travel that exists mainly in your head. Aspirational objects are difficult because they do not merely occupy space. They hold hope. They represent a future self you still feel loyal to, even if your behavior has voted against that future for years. This is why people keep them far beyond reason. Getting rid of the object can feel like getting rid of the possibility. But the replacement test is helpful precisely because it separates identity from inventory. If the object disappeared tonight, would you honestly spend money to bring it back based on how you live now? Not who you admire. Not who you were during one productive week, who you are. A lot of fantasy clutter dies right there. The third category is the guilt object. Gifts you never liked, family hand-me-downs you never chose, decorative pieces you keep because discarding them feels disrespectful, clothes you never wear because someone important bought them, books you feel you should have read by now. Not expensive items you do not use but keep because not using them already feels bad enough. Guilt is one of the most expensive forms of storage. It convinces people they are being morally responsible when they are really just acting as custodians for objects that do not improve their lives. A gift that creates obligation long after the giving moment has ended is not functioning as a gift anymore. It is functioning as a burden with sentimental paperwork attached. Again, the replacement test brings clarity. If this vanished, would I spend my money to retrieve it? If the honest answer is no, then its value is probably historical or emotional in a way that may be better served by a photo, a memory, or simple gratitude rather than permanent residence in your home. Then comes the fourth category, and maybe the most common of all, the deferred decision. This is the box in the hallway, the shelf in the garage, the bin in the closet, the stack in the guest room, the drawer of random, the cabinet of maybe useful things, the storage unit of postponed clarity. These objects are not there because anyone actively wants them. They are there because deciding is uncomfortable, and postponing feels cheaper. It is not cheaper, it is just quieter. The replacement test turns down that quiet. If the box disappeared, would you try to reconstruct its contents? If the answer is no, then the entire box may be living on emotional credit it no longer deserves. This is why the method feels so powerful when applied room by room. It does not require intense motivation. It does not require becoming a different personality. It simply replaces vague attachment with a present choice standard. And once that standard is in place, you start seeing your home differently. The kitchen stops being a room full of categories and starts becoming a room full of justified and unjustified tools. The bedroom stops being a place where clothes simply exist, and becomes a place where garments either support life or merely occupy hangers. The bathroom reveals products you buy versions of yourself with. The living room reveals decorative habits, impulse comforts, and old purchases that have merged so fully with the background that nobody has bothered asking whether they matter. Even books become interesting under this lens. Not because books are bad, because many people do not own books as active reading companions. They own them as signals of seriousness, intelligence, intention, identity. A shelf full of unread books is not automatically a problem, but if half the books in your home disappeared and you felt no desire to buy them back, then those books may not be part of your actual life. They may be scenery. That is the larger truth hidden inside the replacement test. A lot of what people own is scenery. Scenery for a future self. Scenery for a cleaner version of the house. Scenery for adulthood. Scenery for being the kind of person who is prepared for everything. Scenery for being tasteful, productive, athletic, intellectual, domestic, creative, or generous. But scenery is expensive when it lives inside square footage you pay for every month. And it is especially expensive when it also occupies your attention. Because value is not only about whether an object is used. It is also about what it does to the environment around it. A possession can add zero active value while still adding real friction. It blocks surfaces. It complicates cleaning. It makes storage harder. It increases the difficulty of finding what actually matters. It turns the home into a visual to-do list. It creates micro-stress every time your eyes pass over it. People underestimate that kind of burden because it is not loud. It does not sound like debt collectors or emergency expenses. It sounds like background life. But background life is where a huge amount of energy gets lost. That is why homes with too many low-value possessions feel strangely tiring. Not dramatic, just tiring. They ask for constant low-grade management. Shuffle this, dust that. Move this to reach that. Reorganize the closet again. Buy bins, buy shelves. The buy labels. Buy furniture to manage the overflow from previous buying. Then wonder why the house never feels finished. The replacement test starts reversing that cycle. Because each time you identify something you would not replace, you are not merely identifying an object. You are identifying a source of unpaid friction. And that matters financially too. Every possession you keep without replacing it in a modern thought experiment is a possession whose real value may already be gone, while its hidden costs remain active. You are still housing it, cleaning around it, organizing it, moving it, mentally cataloging it. Sometimes you are paying for extra closets, extra cabinets, extra furniture, or extra rooms, partly because enough low-value objects have accumulated to make normal space feel insufficient. Now, this is how zero-value possessions become wealth drains, without ever looking dramatic enough to deserve attention. They raise the cost of home. They raise the cost of maintenance. They raise the cost of attention. And worst of all, they lower your ability to see what truly matters. That last point is important. A crowded home does not only contain too much, it obscures value. When everything is present, nothing stands out properly. Useful objects get buried among irrelevant ones. Beloved objects lose visual dignity because they are crowded by indifferent ones. Important tools become harder to access. Everyday life becomes less graceful than it should be. A good home is not merely a place where things fit. It is a place where the right things are easy to reach, easy to notice, and easy to appreciate. The replacement test helps build that, not by forcing an aesthetic, by restoring hierarchy. This I would buy again, this I would not. Once that distinction becomes clear, a lot of emotional noise falls away. You stop asking whether the item might theoretically be useful someday. You stop defending it because of what it cost in 2019. You stop preserving it because getting rid of it feels like admitting a mistake. You stop letting old spending control current space. And that is where the method becomes more than a cleaning tool. It becomes a way of reclaiming authorship over your environment. Because many homes are not designed at all, they are sedimentary. Layers of former interests, former phases, former purchases, former hopes. The home becomes an archaeological site of unedited living. The replacement test says you do not have to keep every layer. You can decide what still belongs. That decision becomes especially powerful when you ask one more follow-up question after a no. What is this item really doing here? Sometimes the answer is simple. I forgot about it. Sometimes it is sharper. I keep it because I feel guilty. Sometimes it is revealing. I keep it because it supports a fantasy identity. Sometimes it is practical. I keep it because deciding what to do with it feels annoying. These are not trivial answers. They expose the hidden relationship between possessions and psychology. They show that many objects are not maintained by utility, but by unprocessed emotion. Once you know that, you can handle them more intelligently. A sentimental object may deserve one intentional memory box instead of diffuse clutter throughout the house. A gift may deserve gratitude without permanent storage. An aspirational hobby may deserve a real deadline. Either begin using it within the next 60 days or release it. A box of deferred decisions may deserve an hour of honest sorting instead of 3 more years in the garage. This is how the replacement test becomes compassionate without becoming soft. It does not mock attachment. It simply refuses to let attachment masquerade as value when the object no longer contributes meaningfully to life. And life is the standard that matters. Not the catalog, not the original price, not the fantasy version of yourself. Life as it is, lived. The objects that add value tend to prove it clearly. You use them. You reach for them without thinking. They solve real problems. They make daily life easier, calmer, warmer, healthier, cleaner, faster, or more beautiful in a way you would actually notice if they were gone. The objects that add zero value survive mostly through inertia. That is the word underneath so much clutter. Inertia. Things remain because remaining is the default. Because getting rid of them requires a decision, and decisions require energy. The replacement test helps because it simplifies the decision to something your mind can answer quickly. Would I replace it? No. Then why is it still here? That is the opening. That is where space begins returning. And returning space is not trivial. Space is not empty in the negative sense people often imagine. Space is relief. Space is lower visual pressure. Space is easier cleaning. Space is quicker access. Space is less embarrassment when guests come over. Space is less money spent organizing what never needed to stay. Space is a quieter mind. When people finally edit their homes using a standard like this, they are often surprised by what changes first. It is not always the room. Often it is the mood. The home stops feeling like a manager of unresolved possessions and starts feeling like a place designed to support an actual life. That is why the replacement test is so effective. It is not really about throwing things away. It is about discovering what belongs in a house that is supposed to serve you, rather than supervise you. Go back to the kitchen drawer from the beginning. The scissors were always there, but they were buried under the evidence of accumulated non-decisions. Now, that is what a lot of homes feel like. Essential life hidden beneath layers of retained irrelevance. The replacement test strips away those layers one honest answer at a time. Would I buy this again? If yes, it stays with dignity. If no, then its role in your home deserves to be questioned, not automatically renewed. And once you learn to walk through your space with that mindset, something changes. You stop seeing possessions as a fixed landscape. You start seeing them as choices still in progress. Some are worth choosing again, many are not. That is not failure. That is clarity. And clarity in a crowded world is value.